Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. I am your host today, Gilbert McLean, sitting in for Mr. Orit Connor, who has taken a few days' leave. Welcome to Friday, the last day of this week and the upcoming weekend. I hope you will enjoy that. With me in the studio is co-host to this show, Dr. Steve McField, well-known local attorney, and Mr. Arden McLean, member of the Legislative Assembly for East End. And it's my pleasure, gentlemen, to say good morning and welcome to the record.
Good morning, Mr. McLean, and good morning to Mr. McLean. And good morning to all your listeners locally and those who are listening abroad. I know that Orit has a lot of followers outside of the island as well. It's good to be here on Friday morning, and it's good to be between the two McLeans, Arden McLean and Gilbert McLean, and I hope the listeners know that they originated both from the same district in District East End.
That's correct. My father certainly was from that district.
Yes, and I hope that this is going to be a good, productive show this morning. We're looking forward to Mr. McLean continuing the presentation that he and the Honorable Mr. Ezra Miller, the leader of the opposition, started on Wednesday. And so we're looking forward for that this morning and for anything else that Mr. McLean, our host, might want to discuss this morning. And welcome.
Thank you. Mr. McLean.
Yeah, Gilbert.
Mr. Arden McLean.
I guess it's double whammy this morning.
Yeah,
Two McLeans. And certainly we would not be named McLeans and not be family. Eh?
True.
I mean, because the McLeans are very, very, very small within this community. Good morning, Dr. McField. I look forward to it too. I believe that, and morning to the broader Cayman. I always enjoy coming on these radio stations, especially with Caymanians that has. I like to say that we have a point of reference, i.e., that we have been here so long, and we have our own personal experiences of growing up in this country, and then we learned so much from those who were here before us, and I believe that brings a much better balance to how this country is being run. Unfortunately, we don't often get the opportunities to weigh in on things that are Caymanian. That is Caymanian. I was taking note of how Trump and the political directorate in United States in the last few days are talking about controlling legal immigrants, not illegal immigrants, legal immigrants into their country. But what must give us reason to pause is that we have been trying to do that for a long time, and we have been vilified as to why would we want to do that. Well, I mean, America is the biggest economy in the world, and they're trying to do it. But when we do, then it causes us some grief, or it causes those who would control some grief. And I know C is not here this morning. He's probably listening though. But I listened to his wind-up on Wednesday when we were here. And he was trying to draw balance and so that he didn't upset anyone, really. And you have to applaud someone who tries to do that. I do. But I like drawing a balance too, but the balance must be leaning towards us, if there is such a thing. Whether that's 1% or whatever, it's your country. I mean, the fact is that if you were to take America is over 300 million people now. You take over 300 million of another nationality, say Chinese or whatever, Japanese or whatever, and dump them into America, you're going to have civil unrest. We're the only country that has really been so welcoming, so compromising, that in this world, really, you can't do it. You could not even do that in Jamaica or any other Caribbean country, where you have double the population, 100% of the indigenous there as immigrants. We just need to find that balance. We need to find that balance. Wherever that is, we need to search for it.
I think you're right, Mr. McLean. And, the more that we listen to the voices of the people, and I've had the opportunity of being here now a few weeks on Talk Today, there is growing concern and fear, perhaps, and unfortunately, I believe, resentment from the indigenous populace about the question of the high percentage of work permit holders and persons seemingly continuing to come and particularly finding employment where Caymanians can't find it. And I too have listened to the statements of the U.S. president now, and he has made it very clear that Americans must have the first take in the United States. So if that can happen there, then why couldn't it happen here in so small a population? And it comes back, I dare say, to the question of our immigration, and that the government of the day, calling itself the National Unity Government, is going to shift things where it's going to separate immigration for what immigration should be, that it will deal with people coming in and leaving the country and border security, and that labor and will be handled, and work permits and all the rest of it will be handled by an agency, more like a manpower department or whatever the case may be. But how much right now that it is doing or exerting pressure for these things to happen is not very clear, because it's not saying, the government is not saying very much at this particular point in time.
Well, they did announce recently that they had Deloitte, I think,
yes,
doing a study on it. And the funny thing about it is, Gilbert, is that it was Mr. Miller and I who initially brought this idea up, because many years ago, that's what we needed to do. We needed to separate them, because you can't have immigration being in control of your labor force. And that's precisely what has happened over the years. Now it's time to change that. But of course, we need to resource these departments properly, because if we don't, then it will all be for naught. It will go downhill. If we try to appease the people by separating these things and do not resource them properly, then what is the objective? The objective will be lost in the lack of human resources and financial resources in these departments. I mean, I recall when I was a member of cabinet, that's 2005 to 2009, we approved some 30-odd additional immigration officers and the biometric system for the airport. That is the fingerprint system.
I understand that that's actually been here now for several years. It hasn't been put in effect.
It has been in storage ever since before I left cabinet.
You got to wonder what.
And I left cabinet in 2009. So that's almost 10 years. That's 8 years. And I don't know why, but it was all cleared that we could do it. Legally, it was okay. Now, I don't know if pressures have reached subsequent to our removal from cabinet. But certainly, we haven't heard anything about it. We question it, and every time you question it, it's going to be put in place in short order. And short order has not arrived yet. But those are the types of things that I just see where the Premier just resourced the Immigration Department. I hope it works for these the permanent residency applications and processing. I hope it works, but we tend not to get anything out of further resources.
Yes, it seems so many things are happening all at one time, and whether they should be in a particular way that they're going is anybody's guess. However, we got to pause and take a quick break for some messages. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening for The Record with Dr. Steve McPhail and MLA Mr. Arden McLean. Welcome back to For The Record, where we have as our guest a regular person on this show, Dr. Steve McPhail as co-host, and MLA Mr. Arden McLean, representative for Easton. And I spoke to Mr. Connor last night before he left, and he said that one of the things that we wanted to do today as a follow-on was the opposition's national agenda. However, what always seems to come up in the course of play is the question of immigration, employment, and so on. And Mr. McLean, you mentioned that there was now a study or a funding. I understand that part of that funding is to provide administrators, as they are termed by the Premier, to sift through the various applications, like 1,100 of them. And I was finding out from Mr. Connor that I say, well, who do they call administrators? Are these persons who are brought in from private sector and so on? But he told me that they do have some within the Immigration Department who actually go through and vet applications and so on. And he thinks that there was one additional that was taken on, which brings the numbers up to 8. But that those, when they have gone through them, they still have to go to the board to be approved. And what the outcome will be is basically anybody's guess. But there has certainly been a huge buildup of applications, and we are hearing about lawsuits against the government because the government is not dealing quick enough or fast enough, which is totally contrary to what has happened to our huge neighbor to the north. But I guess this is Cayman. Another thing, as far as the funding goes, the contract was given to Deloitte of $143,000 to evaluate immigration strategy. And just to read one or two excerpts here, it says, the accounting firm Deloitte has received a $143,000 contract to conduct a wholesale review of the Cayman Islands Immigration Department, as well as 2 other agencies, as government seeks to improve the hiring process for Caymanians and work permit holders. And Premier Alden McLaughlin said in June that one of his coalition's government primary tasks would be to sort out immigration and reform the public sector hiring mechanism. Well, gentlemen, Mr. McPhail, maybe you might want to comment. What is it, the mechanism, or is it the policy that it is a wide open territory and there's no limitations or constraints put on, as Mr. McLean has referred to.
It's a wide open policy, and there's no constraints, and people are not concerned about the accelerated growth. So I would just like to share with you, gentlemen, and your listening audiences, the population growth since 1802. Now, 1802 is when we had the first census. The governor of Jamaica sent down the gentleman here, and we had the first census in 1802. In 1802, there were 933 people in Cayman Islands. The next census was 1891. There were 4,322 people, a growth of 363.2% growth, or 1.7% growth annually. In 1911, there were 5,564 people in the Cayman Islands. And in 1921, there were 5,270 people. That means that between 1911 and 1920, a lot of people left and went to work in the Panama Canal and all those places, and the population sort of receded. In 1934, there were 5,930 people. And in 1943, it was 6,690 people. And in 1960, population grew to 8,511 people. And in 1970, it was 10,068 people. And in 1979, it was 16,677 people. And in 1989, it was 25,355 people. And in 1999, it was 39,020 people. And in the 2010 census, it showed the population was 55,036 people. And now, today, the population is between 61,000 and 62,000 people. So we have double, in one generation, we have double our population 3 times. And that is what nobody is looking at. And if you continue to do that, in the next generation, the population will triple itself, and the people who are Caymanians will be no more. They will be the minority. And when you see all of the recommendations by people from outside, now looking now for the Legislative Assembly as their prize plum, because the only thing that they do not have now control of is the Legislative Assembly. And when you look at how they're trying to get control of that, can you imagine what would happen in the next generation now? We'll be on the outside looking in instead of on the inside looking out.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beckfield. I see I'm getting a signal that there is a caller. Let's take that caller, and then we come back to a discussion. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Gilbert. I've been waiting for a long time and listening intently. Good morning.
Good morning,
to,
Miss Georgette.
MLA Ard McLean and to Dr. Steve Maxfield.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
This is Georgette Banks. I know after listening to all 3 of you over the years, you are 3 intelligent men. And I am going to make a statement and ask a question, and when I hang up, I would like to hear an answer from all 3 of you. All 3 of you, please. I'm positive all 3 of you realize that the older people, and that includes me, and when I state my age over the air, I state it with such deep gratitude to God, I can't express it. Imagine, I can't even believe it myself that next month I'll be 90. And I have so many friends who have gone and left me, and only a very few of my generation are left. So you 3 gentlemen can figure out that soon, very soon, there are going to be no more born Caymanians living on this island, because those of the women of childbearing age, they are afraid to have children when they look and see what's happening on this island. Plus, they can't afford it. So, please, let me know what you think about this situation. It is a frightening one. When I think that someday I might have, I have 3 grandchildren now, might have, great-grandchildren if they have the nerve. Where and what kind of an island will they be living in? And that goes for all the people on our three islands. Please, I hope those in authority will wake up and think, really think, and ask God for wisdom and knowledge so that this island will not become, or at least its people will not become the island people that time for God. Thank you very much, and God bless the three of you and all your family members.
Thank you very much, Ms. Georgette, and I will ask our two guests to comment as soon as we come back from this news break. Welcome back for the record here on Radio Cayman, where in studio is Dr. Steve McField, co-host for the show, and East End's MLA, Mr. Arden McLean. That gentleman was a lengthy break, but I understand that we have a caller online, so let's take that call and then go back to our discussions. Good morning, caller. Please go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen, and if you don't mind, I'm going to say this, a special good morning to Mr. McLean. I know that he was back on the radio just a little while ago, but I was off the island. A special good morning to you, sir. Good to hear you again. It seems like every government that we get, every 4 years, whether we change government or whether it's just the same government. They hire these people to investigate this or do an audit on that and how much money that this island is going to waste, because that's all becomes of it, just a waste, to find out how many Caymanians that want to work, need to work, are unemployed. Should that not be the duty and the responsibility of those that we put in place to represent us? Should not be their portfolio? This island is too small to not to know how many Caymanians that are unemployed, those that want to work. I know of people, including my son, has applied to government, has applied all over this island for jobs that he is qualified to do. Sometimes, most times, especially from the government, he do not even get a reply back. We don't need you. You're not qualified. You're not whatever. But not even a reply back. Now they got it so that they put it in the paper. If you don't hear from us, you're not one that was selected. That should not be. It's too many of them are. Now what is these people expected to do? Go to needs assessment, social services, to beg when they're qualified, perhaps even more qualified than the people that are, if they get an interview. It is bleeding my heart to know that my son that is qualified cannot even get a job in his own island, in this own island. Yet we take in foreigners after foreigners from Timbuktu that we know nothing about. We don't know their history. When you hear they're thieves, then we turn around, we lock them up, and we feed them, and when they get out, they can get a better job, I assume.
Caller,
I think.
what you're saying is the case with many persons here in this country, and they have similar feelings. You raised the number, and we were discussing it earlier. So I'm going to ask you to leave us there, Mr. McLean and Mr. Macfield. May wish to comment on it, but leave us there if you will. Mr. Macfield, Mr. McLean, whomever. It is somewhat of a story that we hear constantly, isn't it?
As she spoke, I was just jotting down a few things. The question I have to ask all of us: how many of those pleas are going to fall on barren ground? We have done nothing to support our own. We hate each other. That's our problem. We are jealous of each other. We don't want anyone else to be ahead of us. And this permeates this society. You hear what I tell you? We are not prepared to satisfy with what we got. We want more and more, which takes away from those who are of a lesser stature. We need to stop that. We need to recognize our own people for their value. You know what happened to your son? It happens to all and many of our sons. And I ain't gonna go in about mine. That you know, because of my advocacy on behalf of people, my whole family has been victimized at some stage or the other. But I press on because here is where I come from. Here is where they come from. And I will fight on. I should not have to fight on to survive in this country. Neither should your son. Highly qualified young man. We just love to take them out. Let him stay where he is. That's what we do. We don't, you know, it bothers me. It bothers me to the point where I get angry. Of course I get angry. Because it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong that, you know, before we dissolve the Legislative Assembly for the general elections, statistically, we had over 100 Caymanians with post-secondary education. Post-secondary. Some university, whatever, whether doctorate, master's, whatever. Graduate or whatever. Degrees or whatever. In this country, and they couldn't find a job? Really? And we sit down here, and we rejoice over it. If we don't rejoice, we ignore it. And I keep telling us, all of us, that you cannot expect to rejoice because the hole is in the other end of the boat. Your feet are going to get wet eventually. And yes, you elect people to do it. And they sit there and do nothing. And those of us who try to do it, everybody come out and vilify them. All the press. You know, sometimes I wonder if it's not like what Trump say, there's fake news in this Cayman Islands. This is what we do. We kill our own, and then these people start killing our own, and there are certain Caymanians who join in to that charade.
Well, you know, Mr. McLean, the thing is, then, and this has been a theme more or less this week on the other show as well, that people seem to be recognizing now that while, you know, a lot of resentment and statements are directed to those who might be coming here, getting jobs that Caymanians are not getting, that it is actually the business of the government, of Caymanians, of the people who are on the boards, ourselves, who need to make a difference.
Absolutely. I
Mr.
totally agree
McPhail.
with you.
Well, as I sat here and listened to the lady and listened to all the conversation, but in 1960, when I came back here with a diploma in dental technology, I couldn't get a job. I was the only person at that time who had a technical degree from a technical school in the United States. They wouldn't hire me to become a dental technician. I had to go to Jamaica and work at Nuttall Hospital with Dr. Marsh as a dental technician. And then afterward, I went to Canada. I'm a registered dental technician in Canada. That means I took the dental board exams, board certified. Couldn't get a job in my own country. Walked until I didn't have soles on my shoes anymore. And today the same things happen so many years afterwards. Well, you have to blame the people who you elect. You have to blame them. That's what they said when they were campaigning, that they were elected to protect your interests. And so after they got elected at night, I saw they weren't protecting your interests at all. They were protecting their own interests.
And the week and the week following the general election.
Yeah, so it's not the people who come here to work that you must blame.
That's right.
It's the people who you're paying to represent you that you have to be blamed for these things. And not only that, we have a 2009 Constitution that gives us the right to protect ourselves and gives them the right to make the right law to protect you and to have your son and other sons and other daughters have work and employment in their country. And what have they done about it? They've ignored it. They haven't done anything because they don't care about you. You're not valuable. You're not middle class. You don't have $100 million in your pocket. You're not going to take them to the Ritz-Carlton to lunch and things like that. So you have to face the reality. You get what you pay for.
It's a sad state of affairs. It's bad policies. I have said before, I believe I was the first one to publicly state things like Cayman status must be reserved for Caymanians by descent and spouses only. It needs to go further. We need to ensure that our policies on employment in this country, Caymanians are first. The immigration law says that if there are no other Caymanians available. Caymanians have become so afraid now that they don't even want to copy the letters to immigration, because what happens is then they get ostracized from the whole community, from the whole business community, and they fear me because I'm going to change the status quo. Isn't that what the pleas are that we need to change?
Mr. McLean, I think you make a point that lots of people would agree with. We have another caller. I see an indication that we have another caller. So let's hear what that person has to say. Good morning. You're on the record. Please go ahead, caller.
Yes, good morning. And I'd like to put on the record this morning that it's sort of Frank McPhail here, of course.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. McPhail.
Good morning, Dr. Steve and all the Arden.
Louis, good morning.
You know when I hear three grown men, and I being the fourth one now because I call it having to groan in their native land for so long about the fact that we do not respect each other, like you said, we hate each other. We find it difficult to see each other progress. And, this is a sickness that we're all guilty of because it was ingrained in us. It was part of the culture. It was part of the socialization process so that we would be able to socially control the mobility of each other so that we would not be able to compete with those persons that were considered to be in a better position or in a controlling position. And that's the same thing today. So I don't know how we're going to get out of this situation, but the fact is that you've been saying it for a long time, and I heard you during the election. I heard you after the polls were taken. I heard you in terms of trying to see if you could pull enough people together to make a difference in this country, but because you've been labeled, and they focus on you just like they focus on Dr. Steve, just like they focus on me, just like they focus on Gilly. You know, they have focused on persons that have the capacity to be able to figure out what's happening and have have the nerve or the courage to be able to say, you know, what's happening? This is exactly what's happening, and to be able to also sort of indict oneself in what is happening, because we are all part of it. They're scared of those types of persons who are willing to get up each day and suffer over again, because they know that their heart and their soul cannot tolerate this particular type of oppression of the spirit of people in this country. So when I hear you guys together saying this, I say, do you own the country? Or don't you own the country? Do we own the country? Is it our country? Because if it was our country, we wouldn't, big men, grown men willing to, or almost ready to go to their graves, would not be singing this song, because it's only after a country has been conquered and subdued that the old men talk like this. Otherwise, we'd be like the Indians. We'd be out there beating the drums as old men and say, let's go to this bloody war and let's get it decided what's going to happen. It's really, 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 really sad. It would happen in no other Caribbean island, that the senior people, the people who have the ability to suggest solutions, would not be heard by their own people, that their own people would not listen to them, that at this age with Steve and his degrees and his experiences and his outspokenness, that nobody actually says one day, damn it, this is enough is enough. We're going to do something about what Dr. Steve Maxfield is saying, about what Arden McLean is saying, about
Dr.
what
Frank, it seems the work against those of us who do it, it really does.
Well, Frank and Gilbert, let me say.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we just gotta get these things out on the table, because, like you say, Doc, we're in the evening of our lives now, you know, and our time here, the remaining time we have here is less than we have spent. So we might as well deal with what we have to deal with, okay? The problem is that these people see us as angry black men. Let's get it out on the table, okay? Yes, I am angry. I am angry because there are certain Caymanians who does not support other Caymanians and kill those of us who tried to do it. But Chris Sanders put it succinctly the other day. You fear me? It's not me you need to fear. You need to fear the ones that I fear. That is the next generation coming up. You hear what I tell you? Be careful. There is a little bit of passiveness left in us who are of this age. There is none left in those coming behind. It was never instilled in them because they went off and trained. More and more, we are getting our people educated. And let me tell you, it wasn't uneducated people who changed the world. I want them to reflect back on 1989 Tiananmen Square. And the tanks were running over students. It wasn't older people.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. I'm getting an indication that we need to go to a break at this time. So let's take that break now. You're listening for the record. Stay tuned, please. We will be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Gilbert McLean, sitting in for Mr. Art Connor, and with me I have co-hosts Mr. Steve McField and Mr. Arden McLean, MLA for East End. And certainly we have been having a very intense discussion, and so have our callers, on issues where we hear over and over again that Caymanians are not getting the opportunity in their own country. And the question keeps arising, well, what is the government who has the authority, the ability, and the people's expectation to do something about it. Just what are they doing about it? Is it sufficient just to hire Deloitte for $143,000 to study again, to reform the public sector's hiring mechanism, and to tell us how to hire Caymanian? What is wrong? How is it happening that the government seemingly does not perceive it has the authority, the right to fix the situation?
I must tell you, Gil, if I may, before Doc, you go on. I didn't read that newspaper, that trashy one, that fake news. But read that last part again for me. Public sector.
It
reform.
says that Premier Alan McLaughlin said, and this is the July 14th newspaper, the Caymanian Compass. Premier Alan McLaughlin stated in June that one of his coalition's government's primary tasks would be to sort out immigration and reform the public sector's hiring mechanism.
But that has nothing to do with immigration.
Well,
That's not what that's for.
Seemingly it is to tell us how to hire Caymanians, or
But that's public
in the
sector.
public
That's
sector.
in the public sector.
But
That's the government.
But it is also speaking to. Well, it goes on to say that Mr. McLaughlin acknowledged the difficulties ranging from the permanent residence application backlog to long wait lines for work permit approvals to Caymanian unemployment and uncertainties about who will lead the immigration department have plagued government for years.
That's a separate.
Now, that's a
matter
lot
altogether.
said in one
That's
paragraph there.
They got that somewhere wrong, because it is about, in most instances, government does not go through the immigration department. So they got that wrong. Something is wrong about that. That's what I'm concerned about. But the public sector does not include the people outside the government, unless they're using it in a broad sense.
But the public sector does hire persons that they don't need. They don't need work permits, but they hire persons other than Caymanians.
That's what
as
I'm
well.
saying.
Yes.
What the objective here is to get Caymanians employed, and a new policy, immigration labor policy, so to speak, on how we policies on who can work here, who has priority, and the processes. Those are the processes, and I think maybe two of those were.
It could be. He is quoted here, that is the Premier, we've got to sort out immigration generally, end quote. According to bid documents reviewed by the Caymanian Compass, Deloitte will be given wide latitude in developing strategies to restructure the department from primary law enforcement role to a human resources and immigration one-stop shop. However, I got an indication that there are callers on the line, so if we can just pause and take the calls. I understand there are two calls. Good morning, caller. Please go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dr. McField.
Good morning.
I addressed you first the other morning. I skipped you.
Good morning, Mr. Devil.
The Honorable Arden McLean, Honorable Gilbert McLean. Very good panel on you this morning.
Morning, Ivan. How you doing?
Good morning. Two good ex-ministers and one still a minister. Okay, I rate the two of you, because the two of you worked together after you took over in Gilbert. You didn't scrap what he started. You continue on it, and that's the way government should be.
Uh-huh.
If the other people had did the same thing you did, things wouldn't been in a mess. Take, for instance, the dump. You bought a machine there, and far as I know, must been if not, it was any tires at all cut up, and the machine stayed there and rotten down. Different things you started up there, that the dump should not be in this position now. You drill wells and they bury them up, and they had to run drill them back over. So that
I did a study.
resources.
I did a study on it too. I went and they tried killing that for something else, and they're right back to it now.
Eh?
They tried killing that because it was me who did it, and now they're right back to what it was, which was waste energy.
And here late, very few months ago, or some time ago, they bought new trucks and stuff. And Honorable Miller was up there, and he had to call the press because the work was not done. You remember that?
Yes.
So the same thing happening over and over and over and over again. Is our money wasted there, and the dumpers keep going there. You used to had machines to grind up the pallets and the trees and stuff. I don't think that is doing it anymore. So I'm very discouraged with that kind of stuff. Coming back to Caymanians, not working. Caymanians, all those that's in my listening to me this morning, fight for your job. I came back in 1971. Stopped going to sea. And for his right down, I had to do to stay on his island to make a living. But I was determined if was a living to be made here, they would not send me back to sea. And they come in and laugh in our face. And guess what? Most of it was my own Caymanians doing it. So we got to do better than this. We got to do better than this. And I could go on, but it's very informative thing I'm doing this morning. And we've been doing this for weeks now with different things. And Dr. Steve, I rate you a lot with all the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
On paid. That kind of work should be paid for. Boards, people like Gilbert McLean should be on them boards. Dr. Frank McField. We do not need any more studies again but immigration. We know what we need. Go ahead and get it done.
I think, Ivan, that it lies there to a large extent. We know, we've studied it, we've done this, we've done that. We know what needs to be done, and like you say, we need to get it done.
Get it done.
So, thank you for your call. And
I myself still got some life in me if they need me anytime. Okay?
Indeed.
There's a lot of community work for nothing, so I don't expect. I've been on all kind of boards, and I never collected 1 cent. I left it right there. Okay, you all have a blessed day.
Thank you. I understand we need to take a break now, and then if that caller will hold, we will be right back. You're listening for the record. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back to For the Record, where we're having a discussion with Dr. Steve McField, co-host of the show, and Mr. Arden McLean, MLA for the District of Easton. I see a signal that we do have callers on the line. We have 2 callers, I think. So let's go to the telephone line. Good morning, caller. You're on For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My question today is to the Honorable Arden McLean.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me how in the last election they had nine independents, 7 PPM, and 3 CDP? How could the CDP and the PPM form the government when each of them was in the minority with seats? How could that happen?
You want me to answer now?
Is that your question, caller?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's give Mr. Arden McLean opportunity to reply
Thank
to
you.
it. Thank you.
The Friday after we were sworn in on the Wednesday, I came on the show and Doc, I explained that for about 2 hours, no? 2.5 hours, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
2.5 hours. Now, on leaving the studio, and in my closing remarks, I said to the country, you need to ask CDP, the Honorable McKeever Bush, why he joined PPM. Because we had offered him and his party more than he got over at PPM. Now, on the face of it, the only thing you have available to you as a member of parliament in the creation of a coalition government is positions that you can offer. That's all I had. I didn't have anything else to offer. I don't know what else was offered, but I expect, I don't know, that the pot was sweetened. Now, what kind of sugar that was, I can't tell you. But I did my best.
Well, they say when you do your best, angels can't do better. So I guess that's the best that you can reply you can give to there who call and pose the question to you. But Mr. McPhail, I think you were about to go or speak to an issue in the Constitution with regards to what government could legally do as provided for in the Constitution. And I suppose it's left to them to do it. When seems to be the question.
I just, that's what I don't understand. Because any government, any elected government has constitutional powers under Section 16 in respect of the entry and exclusion from or the employment, engaging in any business or profession, movement of residents within the Cayman Islands of persons who are not Caymanians. So why is the government using their constitutional powers to protect their people? That is why I cannot understand. And when you're talking about public service offices, it says also in the Constitution that nothing in any law shall be held to contravene the sections where it says you can it's the discriminatory section to the extent that it requires a person to be a Caymanian. And then it goes on to say, or to possess any other qualifications, not being a qualification, especially relating to any such description of grounds thereof, in order to be eligible for appointment to any office in the public service or in a disciplined force or any office in the service of a local government authority or of a body corporate established directly by any law for public purposes. So what does that mean?
I wonder, Mr. McPhail, if you'd explain that. I am getting a signal that we need to go to the 9 o'clock news. And stay tuned, please. We will be right back for the record after the news. Welcome back to For the Record. And when we took the break for the news, I had just asked Mr. McPhail if he would hold his thought on the section that he read from in the Constitution and explain it a bit in detail so that the average person could get a grasp of the fact that the government has the authority by law, unquestionably, to act on behalf of Cayman.
Not by law, by the Constitution, the highest law in the land. And let me explain that. Under Section 55, the governor has the right to employ anyone in the public service, policemen, firemen, customs officers, immigration officers, prison officers. Okay. You say people say they can't get job there because they're Caymanians, they can't get job there. Well, all the legislature has to do under the Constitution, under Section 16(5), is to pass a law that says all jobs in the immigration department all employees have to be Caymanian. All employees in the fire department have to be Caymanian. All employees in the police department have to be Caymanian, and so forth and so on. When you get to the prison department, they can have probably exemptions for certain positions, but they can pass the law. Now, the governor has the right to appoint all of those people, but when the governor is appointing, she would be appointing Caymanians because she would have to be bound by the law. I do not understand why is it that our elected members cannot understand and read the Constitution and put it into effect. It seems to me that a lot of people who get elected to the legislatures these days do not understand constitutions, they do not understand public administration, and they're not ready for high constitutional office. They have not got the experience. Because when you look at Section 119 of the Constitution that says there shall be district councils in every electoral district to advise the members of that district on the matters pertaining to that district. And now we've gone now near 9 years or 10 years into the Constitution, and there not one district council has been put in place. Why? It's because the elected members, once you get elected, does not want to hear from the members of the district about the affairs of the district. He does not want. So he does not want to abide by the Constitution that says there shall be district council to advise him. And so our people need to be taking these things to court to force these people to abide by the Constitution. Because if the government doesn't abide by the Constitution, which sets out what they shall do, then they are ultra virus of the Constitution and they're disobeying the Constitution, and we have a right to put that into place. So I do not understand why is it that we have all of these elections and you spend all this money and millions of dollars and stuff getting elected, and when they get elected, a lot of them do not have an idea of what high constitutional office is about. You have to abide by the Constitution. I could not see this in America, in England, or any place where you refuse to implement the Constitution of the country. It is preposterous to me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Macfield. I understand we have callers again, so let's hear from the callers. Good morning. You are on the record. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Gilbert.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Maxfield.
Good morning.
And Mr. Arden, the MLA from East End.
Good morning.
Dr. Steve, you just mentioned the word district advisory council.
That's right.
They did have theirs selected them, and they were chosen for every position in the district advisory councils. But you know what? But you do know what happened there. But I didn't go any further. Now for Mr. McLean, Arden McLean. Mr. Arden, with all due respect, I respect you and all of you there, and more than you all there. About the position that Mr. Bush, the McKeever Bush that is now, was offered or whatever by the independents. Was that, because listen, let me say this first. I don't have a computer. I don't have a laptop. I don't even have a TV. I don't have a smartphone. But I do try to catch up on all of my newspapers, even though the trash ones too. About the position there to be the premier Was that for a full term or part of a term?
We didn't
Please
offer.
answer that.
We didn't offer him that.
Pardon?
We didn't offer him that.
You all didn't do so.
No.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And you all continue. I am listening. Radio Cayman is my radio station, so I will continue to listen. I'm going in the back now and put on another radio down in the back there, so I'm going to have two on. You all have a good weekend.
You too. You too.
Thank you very much, caller. You're certainly an avid listener to Radio Cayman. I think, Mr. McField, that there is you have made it amply clear that there is no question whether there is law. In fact, there's constitution that makes it possible and authorizes and legalizes the government to act on behalf of Caymanians. Now, the question continues: why and how long it's going to take after this study by Deloitte and recommendations made and so forth and so on, before something is done to assist the situation where Caymanians, highly qualified, cannot find employment. Again, there is also the question of dealing with the various applications that are in for permanent residence. Some have raised lawsuits, and they're before the court, I understand, where they say that they have not been given, their application has not been dealt with soon enough. I know, Mr. Arden McLean, that you have advocated that Caymanian status go to via marriage by ancestry, and that should be it.
Yes.
One time it was that way, plus it allowed the government and the board to grant 12, that they may grant 12 grants per year. And it was surely a way of controlling or managing the growth by persons coming into the population. There's no doubt about it. But now, and this is perhaps what is causing the main problem. The PPM government, this last term, the term before this, and they basically are back in authority again, has said, in effect, that look, you can come to Cayman, you can stay 10 years, and basically every one of you can expect to stay. You apply at the year 8 and so forth and so on. Is that not loading up the system over and beyond what is sensible for managing it, if really managing it and giving opportunity to Caymanians is concerned?
Yeah, Gilbert, because we have not looked at this thing in a holistic perspective, we cannot take my position, which is Cayman status for spouse and descent only. That's down to grandchildren as it is right now. Mm-hmm. We cannot take that in isolation. Why? Because, Gilbert, this country will forever need people coming in here to work. There is no maybe or perhaps.
But is anything wrong with saying work for 5 years and when that contract is over?
That is why I say you cannot take my thing in isolation. My position in isolation.
There's
about
over
Cayman.
9 billion people in the world,
Right.
and more than enough ready to come to Cayman to work.
Right. So what we need to do is to find some way to deal with the workforce we need without it translating into becoming Caymanian. That's what we need. How we do that, we need to sit down. I believe it's necessary for us as 19 legislators to sit down and look at this thing and be realistic about it. I'm not saying overlook compromise and or whatever or hard nose about this thing. I think we need to find that balance, which we can still service the country with what it needs, so to speak. In that, one of the things that we can be proud of is that we have some of the one of the best financial services system in the world. Why? Because we attracted a lot of good, intelligent people to work in that industry.
But we have some of our own.
But we have some of our own that we need to look out for too.
Yeah.
And but in the same token, what I was going to go on to say, they cannot stay here forever either, and they are not training our people up to take these things over. And you cannot tell me that Caymanians can only be accountants like Roy McTaggart and Dan Scott and Sheldon Hislop, young daughters and that kind of stuff. Cannot tell me that those are the only few that can do it,
No,
and small and the likes.
But you see, Mr. McLean,
but they don't want. The others don't want to bring these other ones.
But you see, Mr. Clean, you keep saying they are not training our people. That's the whole problem. We have the law to say that they have to train the people or else.
Absolutely.
You're
and we're
saying
not
they're
enforcing it.
We're not enforcing it. We're not interested in them training our people.
Exactly. But more so, we need, like I said last Wednesday as well, we have young Caymanian kids in this country who are beyond smart. I introduced you to one, Dr. Frank, after we left here Wednesday. She's from East End.
Yes, I did. And
she's in Hong Kong right now.
Yes.
She cleared up everything, but she going to do medicine, some kind of medicine.
Good. We need doctors.
And those are the kids. I say it, and I'll say it again. We take them from their parents. The parents must understand that they need to release these citizens into the care of the government, and the government will groom them and train them to what we need them to be. And the payback must be that when they come back to this country qualified, she as a doctor, this Linwell Webb's son as a lawyer, because that's all he ever want to do, they must go out and give back to their country by going to the communities. She'll go to East End one day or the next month, and the following month she'll go one day in West Bay and see her people, and she'll pay back to our country, to the very people that we took the taxes from to send her to school and him to school.
They're human assets.
Exactly. We create the human assets of them.
Gentlemen, if you
Develop
will, I'm getting a signal that we need to go to a break. This will be the last break before we have to wrap up this morning. And we have 2 calls online, so if those callers would hold, we'll get back to them as soon as we come back. Welcome back to For the Record. We have 3 callers online, and we'll ask our callers to come to the point and be brief, and then our guests can comment as they see fit. Good morning, caller. You're on the record. You're on air. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Good morning. I've been listening intently.
Good morning.
To the subject about unemployment and all this, whatever's come up. And I think once the government follows the Constitution, enact the laws, and set out specifics in the laws what the employers should follow, nothing is going to happen. They need to take away this gift of PR automatic, like say, okay, you worked for us 8 years, you deserve to be a citizen. That's bull crap. They need to take that away. Give them a term permit. And
it takes me 18 years, raise 1 child for he recognized.
I tell you. And then, and this, giving them a good way of life, living in paradise, and then you want to gift them in the end? That's madness. They need to take that PR away. To give them the maximum term of permit, and they go about their business. That's their business, what they done with their money when they made it here. And then and have our PRs and citizens set for their ability to support themselves if they want to be a citizen here. In other words, they got to buy it, pay for it, and show cash that they can live here for the rest of their life without taking jobs from our Caymanians.
Well, thank you, caller.
Self-sufficient. And they have to listen. These politicians need to listen to the electorate, the people. There's a revolt starting, I can tell you. It's going underground and it's deep. It's like an iceberg.
Thank you for your call, caller. And certainly there's someone who seems to think similarly as the discussion has been going. Another callers that's here.
I don't know where the government, my colleagues, have been living. Don't they hear the voice? Don't they hear the pleas? Don't they hear the fears in our people? We need to do something.
One has to wonder. There are two more callers, and again, I'm going to ask our callers if they would be brief and come to the point, to make the point that they choose. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record. You're on the air.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to the three guests there today.
Good morning.
Mr. McPhail, I'd like to address this first part of this question to you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You rightly point out and bring to the attention that there are certain things that the Constitution requires government to do. They don't do it. There are things, laws that are passed that requires the government to do certain things. They don't do it. And then there's no consequence for not doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody. Now, a way of ensuring that there's no change is ensuring in behavior of people, animals, children, adults, children, animals, is that if you do not take an action when they don't comply with whatever the rules of the house are, then don't expect that behavior to change. It won't change if there's no consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to put into legislation and a constitution, in effect, what are self-implementing laws? Because in Section 19 of the Constitution, Lawful Administrative Action, because we do not have self-implementing laws with consequences for non-implementation, we then turn around and then we have to create a human rights association, because that's a violation of human rights when they don't do it. So we have that expense on us. Then you have to take it through the courts. You got to put a building, you got to have judges and all the rest of it when you don't implement the laws. So to me, it seems to make an abundance of sense. When you don't comply, you apply to register, for example, a right of way that's been in use for decades.
Yes, generations.
Government doesn't acknowledge receipt for over 500 of our people for 17 years, and then there's no consequence for them not taking an action. There are many other things that I can think of. The forming of the district committees, which is required by the Constitution.
I think you made the point, and we'll ask Mr. McPhail to answer to it. There's one other call I'd like to take before that, and that'll be the last call for the morning. So thank you for your call. And Mr. McPhail, you can comment on it. Let's take the last caller. Good morning, caller. You are on For the Record. Please go ahead.
Good morning again. This is Georgette Collins, and I'm very disappointed in the three of you. You did not answer the question that I asked you this morning. And do you know what? That question has almost been answered by people calling in, because all those people who are going to get Cayman status or residence, they are going to have children and grandchildren, and therefore there will soon be no more Caymanians. And I thought the three of you, with the intelligence I thought you had, would realize that we are soon going to be no more Caymanians on this island. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you for your
I
call.
thought we answered it in a roundabout way.
I did.
Yeah. We didn't
yes,
address her directly, but
yes.
I thought we did, yes.
But anyway,
we didn't specifically say that the previous caller we needed to answer. We went to the break. That's what caused it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, with Mr. Adams, our courts do not have the ability to impose sanctions like the Supreme Court in Canada and Supreme Court in America and all those other places. Our courts only can make a declaration saying, I declare that this is your right and stuff, but they have no enforcement ability. Unfortunately, that is how it is. But that is buttressed in other jurisdictions by an electorate that is schooled,
active,
that is active, that understands the system, that educated politically and socially. And so that is what is missing in the country. People feel, well, I don't know. People say, well, I don't know what to say or what to do. And so the people who have the most money also has the biggest voice, because if you're not educated politically, and if you do not understand how the Constitution works and all the laws works, you will always be led by the man who has a lot of money, who can give you $50 and $100 and stuff, and a slice of bread and something from Wendy's or something, a sandwich from Wendy's, and you'll be satisfied with that. You will not be satisfied with the man who's out there lamenting to you and telling you this is the right way, because he's not giving you anything. It's the same thing. People come to a lawyer's office, and the lawyers give you good advice. They don't take the advice, but they will take the advice of a doctor who gives you the prescription and the pill, because it's something he hands you that is tangible, that you can go to the pharmacy and you can get to take.
And make you feel better.
But because he told you something, you don't feel that has any value. So what we need to do, we need to use occasion like this to educate our people, and we need to go out into the different communities, not just on the radio, but we need to have community town hall meetings and stuff. Even if one person appears, we need to go out and do that. Especially, we need to grab the younger generation, because it seems to me that the people who are my age and younger really just do not care. It seemed to me that they have just capitulated, and they have just said that nothing I can do, so they throw their hands up. It's just like, I'll never forget when my mother was sick in a hospital, and the doctor called us and said, you need to take her home. And we said, what? We said, because she doesn't really want to fight anymore. She doesn't really want to fight anymore. And I asked him, he said, the best place for her now is to be at home so she can be comfortable. That is what's happening to the Caymanian public. They don't want to fight anymore. They have given up because there's nothing they can do. And every 4 years, they keep electing the same kind of people who is responsible for their demise. And that is the problem that we have. And unless we face the problem that we have, and we educate our people to make better choices, to make more concrete choices, to understand what their rights are, we are not going to survive. And Ms. Georges is right. In the next school generation, there will not be any of us left. Not a trace of us left. And we'll be the place that not the time forgot, but the time that other people remembers.
Thank you, Mr. McField. Mr. McLean, we're just about that time where we got to wrap up, but your opinion and closing remarks, if you will, please.
I want to clarify one thing first, though. When I spoke of those two young people earlier, the one that I introduced, Mr. McField, to that is in Hong Kong, and one the Webb kid, there are many others like them. Absolutely. Because more and more we have, I have been involved in the youth parliamentarians for a long time now. And I travel with them, and I listen to them on the world stage. And these kids have not even left Cayman yet to go on to university. And I had two young ladies about 2 years ago. They are now off going medical school, and they're constantly in contact with me. These are the kids we need. They will take this country over eventually. I don't care what we do, Gilbert. You are going to die. I want you to understand that. And so will I. But we need to now bring these kids, because what are we going to do? Throw them in water that is over their heads? That's precisely what we're going to do if we don't help them. And we need to take them. Our country's too small for us to lose it to outside forces when we have all these young kids coming up. I mean, I know of this kid who is out of university, going into his last year, one of the top universities in Europe. Come home, nobody won't give him a job. You know what he's doing? Building water-cooled computers for his friends over the summer holidays. Kid asking for $200 just so that he can have something. Must be like 10 places. They won't respond because of who his family is. It's wrong. It is wrong.
And the only one who can intercede on his behalf would be some agency of government.
And government that was applied there too. That's what we do. But the other thing C was talking about, we don't understand. I agree with you. The CPA is doing a road show now, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Secretariat. And they're going to do one here this evening, I think, for young people who are at the town hall in town. I could give you a classic example of how we don't really understand or appreciate what this Constitution says and how the system works. During the election and campaign process, I was campaigning. And a gentleman said to me, "Why are you beating up your mouth about this lawyer bill?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it has no bearing on me. It doesn't give me anything. And, if I support you, I need you to do stuff that is going to be bearing on me." I said, "Really? It doesn't? Let me ask you something. You see those 3 grandchildren that are running around there, are they yours?" I say, "Yeah." I say, "Every day you pick them up from school. Why you take them to school? Should I sit down here and deprive them of the right of becoming a lawyer? Not because you'll never make there or I will never make it, that I should sit down." That's how far it goes. We need to enlighten our people on what the future holds. It mightn't be for me and you, but it'll be for the next generation coming. That's who we also have to make provisions for. Thanks again, Gilbert. Unfortunately, we didn't get to the national agenda, the opposition national agenda.
No, we actually didn't. But again, on Monday, there's the...
I think I come on Wednesday.
On Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow on to...
We'll finish it up.
Yes, to deal with that. And I want to thank you, Mr. McLean, for being our guest. And, of course, Dr. McPhail, who is the co-host here on For the Record. I'd like to thank our listeners and, of course, the people who took the time to call. There's just not been enough time, I dare say, to cover all the things that could be said, and obviously people who wanted to say. I have been your host, Gilbert McLean, sitting in for Mr. Orrit Connor. Today being Friday, we have the weekend ahead. So everyone, I wish for everyone a very enjoyable weekend, and keep listening to Radio Cayman, your radio station. So long for now.